right, hey, what's up, y'all? Let's talk today about the Mediterranean diet and what we believe works about it, what we like about it, and what we can use from it going forward so that we can incorporate it into our experimentation. Thinking about putting this information together, I've had a really interesting journey since I began all this. And I, of course, went through some initial phases of feeling like as long as you ate real food, you couldn't go wrong, even if it was the same thing, most days. And then understanding at some point that we needed to have variety, and so you think about what we learned together in the SHT, we go through our general protocol and then we cycle through phases of focusing on self-sufficiency and experimenting with low carb and what looks like a cleanse or an autoimmune protocol and experimenting with fasting. And so over time, I started to see a lot of tremendous value in that constant experimentation. But then it went beyond that because I realized that we also have to get a variety of foods, not just theoretically for the nutrients, but also to see what works best for us and to keep things nice and fresh. I think that's a big part of it, is always having things a little bit new and exciting, and you end up learning a lot about yourself as you go through those different experiences. So over the years, I've been, super high meat and fat and pork and beef and butter and bacon. I've gone through my phases of what looks a little bit more plant matter based, like detox phases and everything in between. Recently, I just went through a 9-week carnivore experiment where I did almost nothing but meat, fat, organ meats, a lot of bone stock, a lot of collagen. I had a little bit of fruit and honey here and there, and I had my reasons for it, but pretty much no plant matter whatsoever. And and after going through that, I don't even know what I believe about all this stuff anymore. But what I do know, what I do truly believe and understand, and what we know experientially, is that real food has to be the priority. 100% fresh real food all the time. And then within that general guideline, with the SHT, we have something that's livable for a lifetime because our definition of real food is so broad. But we definitely want to experiment within that general definition to see what works best for us. And we want to learn from these popular methodologies that may even be considered fad methodologies so that we can understand what it is about them that works, so we can have confidence in what we're doing and so that we can talk intelligently about these different methodologies, because we're going to come across them with other people that we interact with, So let's talk a little bit about the Mediterranean, what it actually is. Mediterranean diet incorporates a lot of different countries and cultures, so it's really not one diet, it's a compilation of a lot of different diets, and there's some commonalities that we'll talk about. But if we talk about some of the influences that we get, if we look at North Africa, we have things like spices and herbs, but it doesn't tend to be really spicy. We see some deep colors like some oranges and some slow cooked meats and soups, and then we also have the incorporation of herbs like cilantro and parsley. If you look at the Middle Eastern countries, this is where we get a lot of use of garlic and sesame seeds, and one of their famous ingredients is tahini, which is a sesame seed paste, and they use that to make hummus, and they also use it in a lot of different recipes and dishes, and it gives it a really creamy texture and a unique taste. And then of course, also they love to add yogurt and cheeses and things to a lot of their recipes. And then if we look at Italy, of course, we get the famous tomatoes and olives and the things that we would expect from Italy, like oregano and parsley and basil and thyme. We have some Asian influences, which include a little bit of turmeric and then ginger, and then influences from the Balkans, which would be paprika and capers, and then Provence, which is a coastal region of France, we see some things like sage and rosemary, and then fennel, which is kind of a licorice tasting herb. So a lot of different variety there. If we had to pull that together and try to figure out what are some commonalities with all those different cultures and what we just talked about, number one, local seasonal ingredients always, right? So, and that includes produce, fresh herbs, and then the grazing animals tend to be goats and lamb versus, over here in America we have cows and pigs. And then of course, seasonal wild seafood, which includes wild-caught fish and crustaceans and mollusks and stuff like that. Also, the liberal incorporation of spices like cumin, cinnamon, coriander, paprika, turmeric, and saffron. They love to use fresh herbs like cilantro, parsley, and mint, especially as finishers and in salads and salad dressings. And then the liberal use of olive and olive oil. Soups and salads and dips are complements to an overall way of eating. And then fresh fish like anchovies and sardines and other fatty fish are pretty dominant, So if we had to take all those different cultures and pull some commonalities out of it, this is what we'd say would be the commonalities. Now, The big question is like, what is it that makes the Mediterranean diet so healthy? Because we do see, first of all, anecdotally from people that go through a Mediterranean diet, they see a lot of beneficial changes. We also see in the scientific literature a lot of research and some controlled studies where they see tremendous results from switching people to a Mediterranean diet, or what looks like a Mediterranean diet. So the first thing is that they're real foodies. The only thing that we would disagree with to some degree is the fact that they incorporate some breads and pastas and things, but even the breads and pastas are local and seasonal and made fresh, okay, which I think is very different from what we have access to here in America. But they are real foodies. And remember, we've said many times before, if you go from a crap way of eating to something that looks more real foodish, regardless of what that is, whether it's paleo or low carb or keto or Mediterranean, you're going to see a lot of great things shift. All right, so we love the real food aspect of it. We've already mentioned before, they embrace seasonal eating. They embrace, we love this, healthful fats, like olive oil, the liberal use of olive oil, and then also butter and duck fat and lamb fat and animal fats. They obviously don't use any hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated or toxic, highly processed oils. And then, of course, they avoid processed foods. The only thing they incorporate that we might slightly disagree with would be breads and pastas and things, but again, those are made fresh and local. And then they also advocate nose to tail eating, meaning they take advantage of the entire animal. There's a lot of organ meat consumption, a lot of bone stock, meaning they simmer the bones, they get the cartilage and connective tissue and tendons out of that bone stock, and they use that pretty liberally. But beyond the food piece of it, which we love, all that stuff that we just covered, they also advocate certain lifestyle factors, right? So they are known for being more calm and relaxed and just living life at a slower pace. Also, they're huge into family and social connections, and we see this especially around meals because they do a lot of home-cooked meals, and then that family and social connection is important around meals. And then also they have a very active lifestyle compared to a lot of us here in the modern world or Western world. And active lifestyle meaning that they're just on their feet all the time. They have constant low-level activity for the majority of the day. And then they have a much less dependence on technology than we do here in America. So all those things would contribute to an extremely healthful lifestyle, and this is why we see such tremendous results from something that looks Mediterranean-ish. The question is, and by the way, this incorporates Mediterranean into the SHT. That's what we call the SHT Mediterranean, which is a combination of some food principles and some lifestyle factors.